Imagine waking up every day with a clear plan, taking action without hesitation, and finally breaking free from procrastination that's been holding you back. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover how to force yourself to take action every single day, no matter how tired, unmotivated, or distracted you feel. You'll learn practical strategies like building unbreakable habits, removing excuses before they appear, using time blocks to structure your day, and anchoring new actions to routines you already have. You'll see how accountability, simplified choices, and rewarding discipline, instead of fleeting motivation, can transform your daily results. By the end of this video, you'll have clear, actionable steps to take control of your life, boost productivity, and stay consistent. Subscribe to Audiobook Shift for more practical strategies to help you grow, improve, and take charge of your life every single day. Number 1. Build unbreakable morning action habits. Mornings are the foundation of every day. The way a person begins the first few hours after waking determines the tone, energy, and focus that follow. For most people, the problem isn't that they lack ambition or dreams. It's that their mornings are ruled by distraction, hesitation, and chaos. When mornings are weak, discipline fades quickly. When mornings are strong, consistency becomes natural. Building unbreakable morning action habits is about mastering that first battle of the day, the moment between intention and hesitation. That single decision to move instead of delay defines the kind of person you are becoming. Every great day begins with one choice: action before comfort. The world rewards those who move, not those who plan forever. Habits are not built by reading about them, but by proving them through action, one morning at a time. To force yourself to take action every day, the first thing you must do is reclaim your morning. This is the time when your mind is quiet, distractions are minimal, and willpower is still intact. If you can win this period, you can win the rest of the day with less resistance. The truth is, no one wakes up naturally disciplined. People who seem unstoppable have simply trained their minds to move before excuses appear. They don't negotiate with themselves about whether they feel ready or motivated. They wake up and they begin. Action first, feelings later. This mindset is the foundation of every unbreakable morning habit. Waiting to feel inspired is the mistake that traps most people in the same routine of delay. The mind learns from repetition, and the more you act before you think, the stronger your mental muscle becomes. The secret to a strong morning isn't waking up at a specific hour. It's about what you do once you're awake. The first 10 minutes are everything. They decide whether you'll be reactive or proactive. Many people open their phones the moment they wake, flooding their mind with noise, opinions, and chaos before their own thoughts can settle. That single habit robs them of clarity, energy, and peace. The first rule of powerful mornings is simple: protect your mind before the world gets to it. Before checking notifications, messages, or social media, invest those minutes into grounding yourself. Sit in silence, breathe deeply, and remind yourself of your purpose for the day. The mind must be directed, not drift. Creating an unbreakable morning habit begins with a single anchor, a consistent cue that signals your brain it's time to act. It could be the sound of your alarm, the first sip of water, or the act of putting on your shoes. Whatever it is, link that cue to a simple action you'll repeat every morning without question. The power is in the repetition, not in the complexity. Over time, your mind begins to associate that cue with movement instead of delay. The result is automatic discipline. Start small. Massive changes fail because they demand too much at once. Begin with one simple act that moves you forward the moment you wake. It could be stretching for 5 minutes, writing 3 things you're grateful for, or reviewing your priorities for the day. The goal is to train your mind that waking up means moving. The first 10 to 15 minutes of your day should feel intentional, structured, and calm, not rushed or chaotic. This early momentum builds confidence. When you start your day with control, you begin to believe in your ability to direct the rest of your hours. The greatest enemy of a strong morning is comfort. The bed is warm, the world outside is demanding, and the brain searches for any reason to delay movement. The only way to defeat this is through ritual. When your actions are decided ahead of time, you don't need to negotiate with yourself each morning. You don't ask, "Should I get up now?" You've already decided. Your clothes are ready, your tasks are clear, your plan is set. Discipline thrives on clarity. Remove all decision-making from the early hours and let your habits guide you automatically. If you struggle to stay consistent, reduce the friction between intention and action. Keep your environment ready. Place your workout clothes next to your bed. Keep your journal and pen on your desk. Prepare your water bottle before sleeping. Every small adjustment removes a possible excuse. It's not about willpower, it's about design. The easier it is to start, the harder it is to fail. Over time, this preparation trains your subconscious mind to expect action. It becomes part of who you are, not something you have to force. Mornings are also the best time to align your thoughts with your values. Before the world distracts you, remind yourself of what you stand for. Think of the person you are building. Picture your future self, strong, focused, and disciplined, and ask what that version of you would do right now. Would they stay in bed or stand up and begin? Visualization is not fantasy, it's mental training. When you consistently imagine yourself acting with strength, your behavior begins to match that image. The mind obeys what it believes. Another key to mastering your mornings is to create a system of accountability, even if it's only to yourself. Track your streak. Write down each day you wake up and complete your habit. The visible proof of your consistency becomes motivation in itself. When you see 10, 20, 30 days in a row of action, you won't want to break the chain. Discipline is often maintained through momentum. The more days you win, the more your identity strengthens around the idea of being a disciplined person. And once something becomes part of your identity, it no longer feels forced. It feels natural. Avoid perfection. Missing one morning doesn't mean you've failed. What matters is your recovery speed. People who stay disciplined aren't those who never slip up. They're the ones who return to their habits quickly without guilt or overthinking. If you wake up late one day, move immediately into your routine anyway. Even a shortened version keeps the rhythm alive. Discipline isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it regardless. There's also a deeper psychological benefit to morning action. When you begin your day with discipline, you start with a small victory. That sense of control boosts dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which then fuels motivation for the next task. One small win leads to another. That's how entire days of productivity and focus are built, not from sudden bursts of motivation, but from the momentum of one disciplined act after another. Over time, your morning habits begin to shape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries to be productive and start seeing yourself as someone who simply acts. The phrase, "I have to," transforms into "this is who I am." That shift is powerful. True transformation happens not when you force yourself every day, but when action becomes automatic. And the only way to reach that level is through consistent repetition, especially in the mornings when your resistance is highest. To strengthen this even further, associate your morning habit with a sense of meaning. Don't just wake up early for the sake of discipline. Remind yourself why it matters. Maybe it's to become the kind of person your younger self would admire, or to set an example for your family, or to move closer to a dream you've ignored for too long. Purpose gives your habits depth. When action is connected to meaning, persistence becomes easier. Building unbreakable morning action habits isn't about waking up earlier than others. It's about rising above your excuses. Every morning gives you a new chance to practice discipline, and each repetition reinforces the kind of person you're becoming. There's a quiet strength in mastering yourself before the day begins. It's not loud or dramatic. It's steady and unshakable. The person who wins their morning doesn't need to chase motivation throughout the day. They create it from within. Over weeks and months, these simple routines accumulate into something extraordinary. You begin to notice that decisions feel easier, distractions have less power, and procrastination fades naturally. What once felt like effort now feels like identity. That's the point where discipline turns into freedom. When action becomes effortless, life feels lighter. You no longer rely on motivation or emotion. You simply move because that's what you do. Every morning, the battle between comfort and progress begins again. You stand at the edge of a simple choice: act now or wait. The world belongs to those who act. Each sunrise is an invitation to prove your strength, to build your habits stronger, and to live one more day with purpose and direction. The most powerful version of yourself isn't waiting in the future. It's hidden in the discipline of your mornings. Build those habits until they become unbreakable, and you will never again need to force yourself to take action. You'll simply wake up, rise, and be. Number 2, remove excuses before they appear. Excuses are the invisible chains that keep people tied to inaction. They sound harmless, logical, even reasonable, but they are the quiet destroyers of progress. Most people don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they allow excuses to disguise themselves as truth. Excuses are persuasive because they feel justified. They let you stay in your comfort zone without guilt. They protect your ego, but they rob your potential. To remove excuses before they appear, you must learn to see them for what they are: defense mechanisms that keep you safe from discomfort and growth. Excuses are not signs of weakness. They're signs of fear. Fear of effort, fear of failure, fear of judgment. Every time you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, you build another wall between who you are and who you could be. Removing excuses doesn't mean pretending fear doesn't exist. It means acting despite it. The people who consistently take action are not fearless. They've simply trained themselves to move while fear whispers in the background. They don't negotiate with their mind. They replace hesitation with decision. The mind is skilled at producing justifications. I'm too tired. I'll do it later. I need to feel ready. These phrases are the language of delay. They come automatically because the brain prefers comfort to challenge. Its instinct is to protect, not to progress. Understanding this helps you detach from your excuses. When you recognize that those thoughts are just the brain's attempt to keep you safe, you can choose to act anyway. You stop taking your own excuses personally. They're not truths, they're habits of thought. The most effective way to remove excuses is to anticipate them before they arise. Preparation kills procrastination. If you know you'll be tempted to skip the gym after work, pack your bag the night before. If you know you'll struggle to focus on an important task, silence your notifications and clear your workspace in advance. Excuses thrive in chaos. When your environment is cluttered or unprepared, it becomes easy for your mind to find reasons to delay. Order weakens the power of excuses because it removes uncertainty. Another way to eliminate excuses is to challenge them out loud. When your mind says, "I don't have time," respond with truth. "I do have time, but I'm choosing something else." When you say it that way, the illusion breaks. Excuses only survive in silence. They can't hold up under honesty. Speaking them reveals how weak they are. You'll quickly notice that most excuses fall apart when examined closely. They exist only to make inaction feel justified. The more honest you become with yourself, the fewer excuses you'll tolerate. Accountability is another weapon against excuses. When you're the only one who knows your goals, it's easy to bend the rules. But when you involve others through a friend, a mentor, or even public commitment, the pressure to follow through increases. You create an external expectation that reinforces your internal discipline. The goal isn't to depend on others for motivation, but to use accountability as a mirror. When someone expects results, you see your excuses more clearly. You're less likely to let them control you. Excuses also feed on uncertainty. When your goals are vague, your mind doesn't know what to do, so it finds reasons to wait. Clarity destroys hesitation. Be specific about what action looks like. Instead of saying, "I need to exercise more," decide, "I will run for 20 minutes at 7 a.m. Clear instructions leave no room for negotiation. Excuses lose their voice when you've already decided what to do, when to do it, and how. The more structured your plan, the less emotional resistance you'll feel. People often think motivation will erase excuses, but that's backwards. Motivation is unstable. It comes and goes. What really removes excuses is commitment. When you commit to something fully, you stop giving your mind permission to debate it. You stop making decisions based on feelings and start making them based on values. Feelings fluctuate. Principles don't. When you act according to principle, discipline, integrity, growth, excuses become irrelevant. They may still appear, but they no longer influence your actions. To master this, you need a shift in identity. Stop identifying as someone who tries to stay disciplined. Identify as someone who acts regardless of obstacles. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, reframe it. I'm not someone who waits for ideal conditions. I move even when it's inconvenient. This self-image becomes a shield. You begin to take pride in doing what others avoid. You find satisfaction not in ease, but in execution. Over time, your brain learns that discomfort is not a threat, it's proof of growth. One reason excuses persist is emotional reasoning. People believe that if they don't feel ready, they shouldn't act. But feelings are unreliable indicators of truth. Action should not depend on emotion. It should depend on intention. Waiting for the right mood is a trap. The right mood appears after action, not before it. The moment you begin moving, the resistance weakens. The hardest part is always the beginning, the first 5 minutes. Once momentum builds, excuses lose their grip. The environment you live in also plays a major role. If you surround yourself with people who justify mediocrity, you'll unconsciously lower your standards. Excuses spread through association. To remove them, align with people who value action. Be around those who don't tolerate their own excuses. Their energy will challenge your complacency. You'll begin to adopt their habits naturally. Excellence becomes normal when it's what everyone around you expects. It's also important to track the language you use. Words create reality. Saying "I can't" immediately shuts down your brain's problem-solving ability. Replace it with "How can I?" and your perspective changes from defeat to possibility. Excuses close doors, questions open them. Every time your mind produces a limitation, answer with curiosity instead of surrender. "I don't have enough time" becomes "How can I make time?" This small linguistic shift transforms obstacles into challenges you can overcome. To remove excuses permanently, you must also face the truth about comfort. Comfort feels good in the moment, but costs you long-term peace. The short relief you get from avoiding action is replaced by lasting frustration later. Discipline hurts now but rewards you later. Excuses feel good now but punish you later. Once you internalize this, your choices change. You begin to seek the kind of discomfort that strengthens you instead of the comfort that weakens you. There will be days when excuses seem justified. You'll feel exhausted, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. In those moments, simplify the process. Don't aim for perfection, aim for presence. Do something, even if it's small. When you move even a little, you protect your identity as a person of action. Consistency matters more than intensity. Missing a perfect session doesn't destroy progress, but letting excuses control your day does. Action, no matter how small, is a declaration that you're still in charge. Another practical method is to use consequence and reward. Attach a meaningful cost to your excuses. If you skip a habit, donate to a cause you dislike, or tell a friend you failed to follow through. The discomfort of consequence creates accountability. On the other side, reward yourself for action. Reinforce the identity you're building. Over time, your brain will begin associating movement with satisfaction and inaction with loss. Behavioral psychology works best when you use it consciously. Excuses are strongest when you act without awareness. Most people don't even realize when they're giving themselves permission to delay. Start observing your thought patterns. Write down the common excuses that stop you. Once you see them written clearly, they lose power. Awareness turns invisible barriers into visible challenges. You can't defeat what you don't recognize. When you make your excuses tangible, you make them manageable. Ultimately, removing excuses before they appear is about living intentionally. It's about refusing to let your emotions or environment decide your actions. Every excuse has one goal: to keep you from discomfort. But comfort never built strength, clarity, or success. Growth belongs to those who do what they said they would, especially when it's hard. Action doesn't require perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It requires honesty, preparation, and courage. Each day is a test of whether you will listen to your excuses or to your purpose. The moment you silence the voice that says later and replace it with now, you reclaim control over your life. You start moving not because you feel ready, but because readiness comes through movement. The discipline to act without hesitation is what separates intention from transformation. When excuses no longer control your choices, you become unstoppable, not because everything is easy, but because nothing can stop you from doing what must be done. Number 3. Set micro goals with instant rewards. Progress often fails not because the goal is impossible, but because it feels too far away. The human mind struggles to stay motivated by something distant. The larger the dream, the easier it becomes to delay action. This is why most resolutions fade, and why people lose momentum halfway to success. The answer is not to dream smaller, but to break those dreams into smaller, measurable steps that deliver quick satisfaction. Setting micro goals with instant rewards transforms overwhelming ambition into manageable victories. It creates a feedback loop where progress feeds motivation instead of draining it. A micro goal is a small, clear, and achievable step that moves you closer to a larger objective. It focuses your attention on what can be done now, not what should be achieved months later. When your mind sees immediate progress, it rewards you with a sense of accomplishment. That psychological reward is what keeps you consistent. Humans are wired to respond to progress. Each small success releases dopamine, the brain's motivation chemical, which then fuels the desire to keep going. This is how long-term discipline is built, not through force, but through a series of meaningful wins. Most people set goals that are too big to act on daily. They say things like, I want to get in shape, I want to start a business, or I want to become financially free. These are powerful visions, but without structure, they paralyze rather than inspire. The mind doesn't know where to begin, so it defaults to inaction. Micro goals solve that problem. They turn abstract ambition into specific, concrete actions that can be completed today. Instead of focusing on the mountain, you focus on the next step, and each step proves that progress is possible. When you set micro goals, you must also define instant rewards. These are not bribes, they are reinforcements. They teach your brain that discipline and effort lead to positive emotion. The reward doesn't have to be grand. It could be a few minutes of rest, your favorite snack, or even checking the goal off your list. The key is to create a link between effort and satisfaction. Over time, your brain begins to associate action with pleasure. This rewires your motivation system and makes consistency feel natural. For example, instead of setting a goal like read more books, set a micro goal such as read 5 pages every morning. Once you finish those pages, reward yourself with something small, a cup of coffee, a short walk, or a moment of reflection. The immediate reward locks in the habit. Soon, reading becomes something you look forward to rather than something you resist. The same principle applies to fitness, learning, or career growth. The smaller the step, the easier it is to start, and starting is the hardest part of any goal. Micro goals also remove the fear of failure. Big goals can be intimidating because they take time and come with uncertainty. When you focus on the next achievable step, failure becomes impossible. You either complete the step or you learn how to adjust. There's no crushing disappointment, no pressure of perfection. You build progress one action at a time. Over weeks and months, these tiny victories accumulate into massive change. The process feels lighter because you're not constantly thinking about how far you still have to go. You're focused on what's immediately within your control. This method also protects against procrastination. The brain resists large, undefined tasks, but it cooperates with clear and small ones. Write a book is overwhelming. Write one paragraph feels easy. The smaller task doesn't trigger avoidance because it feels manageable. Once you begin, momentum takes over. The hardest moment is always before you start, not after. Micro goals bypass that mental resistance by lowering the barrier to action. Once you move, motivation follows naturally. To use micro goals effectively, you need to track them visibly. Write them down where you can see them. A physical checklist, progress tracker, or habit app can turn invisible progress into visible proof. Each tick mark you make becomes a small celebration. That act of marking completion reinforces your sense of capability. It's a reminder that you are moving forward, even when the progress feels slow. Visible progress builds emotional momentum, And that momentum is the lifeline of long-term consistency. Instant rewards also teach patience in disguise. When you experience frequent satisfaction from small wins, you stop craving quick results from big goals. You learn to enjoy the process instead of obsessing over the outcome. This is how sustainable motivation is built. It's not about chasing one giant success. It's about collecting hundreds of small ones that gradually transform your life. Every micro goal you complete strengthens your identity as a disciplined person. It's not just what you do, it becomes who you are. When setting micro goals, clarity is everything. A goal like eat healthier is too vague. A micro goal like add one serving of vegetables to lunch gives you direction. Ambiguity invites hesitation. Precision invites action. You should be able to answer exactly what needs to be done, when and how you'll know it's complete. The more specific the goal, the less mental effort it takes to start. That simplicity removes friction, and friction is what kills consistency. One mistake people make with micro goals is skipping the reward stage. They push themselves relentlessly, believing discipline means never feeling good until the end. But this backfires. Without emotional reinforcement, effort starts to feel like punishment. The mind begins to associate hard work with exhaustion rather than pride. Rewarding yourself, even briefly, tells your brain that effort is worth it. It keeps the fire alive. You don't have to wait until the finish line to feel accomplished. You can experience success daily. It's also helpful to connect micro goals to your long-term purpose. Each small step should remind you why you started. When you know the meaning behind your actions, they carry emotional weight. For instance, if your long-term goal is to become financially stable, and today's micro goal is to track your expenses, you can remind yourself that this small act is a step toward independence and peace of mind. This perspective turns ordinary actions into meaningful ones, which increases motivation to keep going. Micro goals also teach resilience. When life becomes unpredictable and routines break, small goals help you stay grounded. Even when you can't do everything, you can always do something. That sense of control prevents you from slipping into defeat. Momentum, no matter how small, is better than stagnation. Each completed micro goal tells your mind that you're still in motion, still capable, still progressing despite circumstances. That quiet persistence is what separates those who quit from those who eventually succeed. Technology can assist in building this system. Habit tracking apps, progress bars, or simple digital reminders can serve as modern tools for reinforcing micro goals. The visual satisfaction of completion, even in digital form, stimulates motivation. The mind craves closure, and seeing a task marked as done provides a rush of accomplishment. Over time, this consistent loop of goal, action, and reward becomes second nature. There's also a deeper psychological transformation that happens when you live by micro goals. You start trusting yourself again. Many people lose faith in their own discipline because they've broken promises to themselves too many times. Setting small, realistic goals rebuilds that trust. Every time you follow through, you prove that you can rely on yourself. Confidence grows quietly through repetition. Soon you stop doubting whether you'll take action. You just do it because it's part of who you are. Over months, micro goals create compound growth. What begins as tiny progress becomes exponential improvement. Reading 5 pages a day becomes finishing multiple books a year. Saving a few dollars a day becomes financial freedom. Exercising for 10 minutes a day becomes a strong and healthy body. It's the same principle nature follows. Grow through consistency, not intensity. Nothing remarkable happens overnight, but everything remarkable begins with a small daily step. Instant rewards keep this process alive. They are not indulgences, but reinforcements. They remind you that you're doing something worthwhile. They make the grind enjoyable instead of unbearable. When effort and enjoyment coexist, longevity becomes effortless. The people who sustain success the longest are not the ones who work the hardest. They are the ones who have learned to enjoy the process. Setting micro goals with instant rewards is not just a productivity strategy. It's a mindset shift. It's about valuing daily progress more than distant perfection. It's about giving yourself permission to celebrate small victories instead of waiting for one grand achievement. The moment you adopt this approach, everything changes. The future stops feeling intimidating because you're no longer chasing it. You're building it piece by piece. Each small success adds weight to your confidence, and that confidence becomes the fuel that drives you forward. In the end, the people who achieve extraordinary things are those who master the ordinary moments. They take the massive goals that scare everyone else and divide them into actions small enough to complete today. They reward themselves for showing up, for trying, for pushing forward. Their consistency becomes their strength. When you learn to set micro goals with instant rewards, you no longer wait for motivation. You create it daily through progress, pleasure, and purpose. That is how lasting transformation begins, one small, rewarded action at a time. Number 4. Track progress visibly for motivation. Progress that can be seen is progress that stays alive. The human mind thrives on visible proof of movement. When people can see their efforts turning into results, motivation multiplies. But when progress stays hidden, discipline weakens. The mind begins to doubt whether the effort is worth it. That doubt quietly eats away at consistency until the habit breaks. Tracking progress visibly is not just about measurement. It's about creating a constant reminder that your work is building something real. It turns invisible effort into visible evidence, transforming motivation from something you chase into something you can see and feel. Every goal, no matter how big, is built on repeated actions that seem small in isolation. Those small actions often feel meaningless when there's no way to measure their effect. That's why people give up just before results appear. They can't see the progress they're making, so they assume there isn't any. But progress is always happening beneath the surface, just not always visible without a system to reveal it. When you track your effort, you bring that hidden progress into the light. You remind your mind that every repetition counts, and that each step forward is part of a larger picture. Visible tracking acts like a mirror for your discipline. It reflects your consistency, your patterns, and your truth. It's honest. Numbers don't lie. A wall calendar filled with check marks, a notebook of completed workouts, or a progress chart on your wall. All of these tell a story without words. They remind you that you're building momentum even when you don't feel like it. And on the days when motivation fades, that visible proof becomes your fuel. It tells you, you've come too far to stop now. The human brain loves completion. Every time you check something off or see measurable progress, you trigger a small release of dopamine. That chemical reward reinforces the behavior, making it more likely you'll repeat it. This is why visual tracking systems work so effectively. They turn effort into a game your mind wants to keep playing. You begin to crave progress the same way you crave entertainment or comfort. That's the psychology behind motivation. It's built through visible wins, not unseen effort. There are countless ways to make progress visible, but the best method is the one you'll actually use daily. It can be digital or physical. Some people prefer writing in a journal. Others use apps, habit trackers, or even simple sticky notes on a wall. What matters is consistency. The act of recording reinforces awareness. When you track something, you begin to pay attention to it. That awareness alone changes behavior. If you record how much time you spend working, you'll naturally work more. If you track what you eat, you'll start eating better. Progress measurement sharpens self-control because it keeps the truth visible. One powerful form of visual tracking is the streak system. Every day you complete your habit, mark it visibly. Over time, those marks form a chain. The longer the chain grows, the stronger your motivation becomes. You don't want to break the streak because each mark represents effort you've already invested. This method works because it makes progress tangible. You can see the story of your discipline forming day by day. A single blank day becomes a reminder of lost consistency, while a long chain becomes a symbol of pride. Another effective strategy is visual progress mapping. Create a chart, graph, or even a visual representation of your journey, like filling a jar with coins for each completed action, or coloring sections of a progress bar. The physical act of adding to that visual representation strengthens commitment. It's a ritual that connects your mind to the process in a deeper way. You're not just imagining growth, you're witnessing it unfold. This connection builds emotional investment, and emotional investment sustains long-term effort. Tracking progress also helps reveal patterns. You start noticing which days you perform best, what time you're most productive, or which habits consistently improve your mood and energy. This insight allows you to adjust intelligently rather than guessing. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on data. Growth becomes strategic instead of emotional. You can see what works and what doesn't, and that awareness makes improvement faster and easier. Visible progress tracking also provides perspective. It's easy to forget how far you've come when you're focused only on how far you still have to go. The mind tends to measure progress by what's missing, not by what's been achieved. A visible record flips that perception. When you look back at your notes, logs, or marks, you realize how much has changed since you started. That realization reignites confidence. It reminds you that persistence pays off. The visible evidence of effort becomes proof that discipline works even when results take time to appear. There will be days when tracking feels unnecessary or boring. Those are the days when it matters most. Because tracking is not only about measuring success, it's about staying engaged with the process. Every mark or entry is a small promise kept. It reinforces your identity as someone who follows through. Even if the result isn't perfect, the act of documenting it maintains your connection to the goal. Skipping the tracking step might seem small, but it weakens awareness. The discipline to track consistently strengthens the discipline to act consistently. The beauty of visual progress is that it turns self-improvement into something visible and inspiring. Instead of chasing motivation through words or external validation, you generate it through visible proof. You no longer need to remind yourself why you started. Your progress record reminds you for you. Each visual mark becomes a silent motivator whispering that you're capable of more. That kind of motivation doesn't fade easily because it's grounded in real evidence, not emotion. The design of your tracking system should also reflect your personality. Some people are motivated by numbers, others by visuals, and some by words. If you love structure, use detailed charts or spreadsheets. If you prefer creativity, create a visual board that grows as you progress. The goal is to make the system enjoyable enough that you'll look forward to updating it. Tracking shouldn't feel like a burden. It should feel like a celebration of movement. You're not documenting failure. You're showcasing growth. For people aiming at long-term goals, tracking is especially crucial. When results take months or years to appear, visible tracking keeps motivation alive during the quiet seasons of effort. It bridges the gap between action and reward. It shows that something is happening even when external results are still forming. That belief keeps your energy alive. The more you can see, the less you doubt. Tracking also introduces accountability. When you can see your own effort clearly, excuses lose their power. You can't lie to yourself about what you did or didn't do. The truth is right in front of you. That honesty creates strength. It forces you to take responsibility for both your progress and your stagnation. Responsibility is empowering. It means you control the outcome. You can adjust, improve, and grow because you see exactly where you stand. For those who struggle with motivation, tracking can become the anchor that keeps them moving. Even small signs of improvement, a few extra minutes of focus, one more rep at the gym, a little more saved money, can reignite enthusiasm. The brain loves evidence. When you feed it visible proof of success, it naturally wants to continue. This is why so many people who start tracking end up doing more than they planned. Seeing progress creates hunger for more. Over time, tracking builds pride. Not the shallow kind based on comparison, but the deep kind that comes from knowing you've shown up for yourself consistently. You begin to look at your progress log, not as a task list, but as a personal history of discipline. Each mark represents a day you chose progress over comfort, effort over ease. That pride becomes the foundation of self-respect, and self-respect is one of the strongest forms of motivation there is. Eventually, your tracking system becomes more than a tool. It becomes a reflection of your evolution. You can look back months or years later and see your growth laid out in front of you. It becomes a story of perseverance written in your own hand. It reminds you that transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens through steady, visible effort. The proof of who you're becoming is right there in your own route. When you track progress visibly, you take control of your motivation. You no longer rely on temporary bursts of energy or fleeting emotions. You build a system that keeps you engaged, honest, and inspired. It's a simple practice with a powerful impact. The sight of your progress, clear, undeniable, and growing, becomes the reason you keep moving forward. You stop questioning if you're capable, because the evidence is already there. And once progress becomes visible, quitting becomes almost impossible. Number 5. Create discomfort to spark movement. Comfort is a trap that feels good while it quietly destroys your drive. It whispers that you've done enough, that you deserve to rest, that tomorrow will be a better time to start. But the truth is, comfort kills momentum faster than failure ever could. Growth lives on the edge of discomfort. It's the tension between where you are and where you want to be that creates the spark to move. People often wait for motivation to arrive before taking action, but motivation rarely comes when you're comfortable. It's discomfort, pressure, challenge, unease that wakes up your mind and forces you to move forward. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has learned to create discomfort on purpose. They don't wait for life to make things hard. They make things hard for themselves in small, controlled ways, so they can stay alert and driven. They understand that the human mind adapts only under stress. Muscles grow when they're pushed beyond comfort. Skills sharpen when they're tested under pressure. Confidence builds when you face things that make you nervous. The pattern is simple but powerful. Comfort maintains, discomfort transforms. You don't need chaos or pain to grow. You just need enough discomfort to wake up the part of you that's been sleeping. When everything feels too easy, your mind drifts. You lose urgency. Time slips away because nothing feels at stake. That's why creating discomfort is an intentional strategy. It's not about punishing yourself. It's about keeping your inner fire alive. You can build that discomfort in many ways by setting tighter deadlines, raising your standards, or taking on something that scares you. The goal is to create friction that keeps you moving instead of waiting. Start by identifying where you've become too comfortable. Maybe you've settled into routines that no longer challenge you. Maybe you've surrounded yourself with people who never push you to do better. Maybe your environment makes it too easy to avoid action. Discomfort begins with awareness. You have to see where your comfort zone ends before you can step beyond it. Once you spot those areas, start introducing small, deliberate challenges. If you avoid confrontation, have one hard conversation. If you procrastinate, give yourself a public deadline. If you feel stuck, do something that disrupts your normal pattern. Each act of discomfort creates a spark of momentum. Your brain has a survival instinct that loves safety. It's wired to avoid pain and seek ease. That's why you naturally resist discomfort, even when you know it's good for you. The trick is to retrain your mind to associate discomfort with growth. The first few times you step into something uncomfortable, your body will resist. Your thoughts will flood with reasons to quit. But when you push through and see progress on the other side, you begin to rewire that association. Discomfort becomes proof that you're moving in the right direction. Think about how you feel after doing something you were scared to do. Public speaking, starting a new project, saying no when it was easier to say yes. At first, the discomfort feels heavy, but once it's done, you feel stronger, more alive, more in control. That's the reward built into discomfort. It's not the pain itself that changes you. It's what happens after you push through it. Every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself that fear doesn't control you. That kind of self-trust is rare, and it's what separates people who act from people who only dream. One of the simplest ways to use discomfort for progress is through small daily challenges. Wake up earlier than you want to. Finish the task you've been avoiding. Take a cold shower, speak up in a meeting. Send that message you've been overthinking. These moments might seem small, but they're powerful because they build mental toughness. You're teaching your brain to stay steady under pressure. Over time, the size of the discomfort you can handle grows. What once felt impossible becomes routine, and that growth compounds across every area of your life. Discomfort also keeps you honest. When you stay too comfortable, it's easy to create excuses that sound reasonable. You tell yourself you're preparing, planning, or waiting for the right time. But discomfort doesn't give you room for excuses. When you put yourself in situations where you must act, you reveal your true capacity. You stop guessing what you're capable of and start finding out. That truth can be uncomfortable at first, but it's liberating. Once you know your limits, you can stretch them. There's also a creative benefit to discomfort. The brain becomes more alert when faced with challenge or uncertainty. You think faster, deeper, and more resourcefully. When you're slightly uncomfortable, you start finding solutions you never considered before. Many breakthroughs, both personal and professional, come from being pushed out of comfort zones. That's why high performers intentionally create situations that demand more from them. They know discomfort sharpens their creativity, resilience, and focus. It's important to recognize that comfort isn't the enemy. It's the reward you earn after growth. But too much comfort too soon turns into stagnation. It's like staying in warm water until it turns lukewarm. You stop noticing the change until it's too late. Discomfort resets that awareness. It reminds you that you're alive and capable of more. It reawakens urgency and purpose. When you feel restless or uninspired, that's usually a sign that you've outgrown your current comfort zone and need to challenge yourself again. One method to stay in healthy discomfort is to constantly raise your personal standards. When something becomes easy, upgrade your expectations. If you're hitting your goals effortlessly, make new ones. If your daily routine no longer pushes you, add something that does. This prevents you from falling into passive living. You're always slightly stretched, not enough to break, but enough to grow. The process becomes your lifestyle. You stop waiting for life to test you and start testing yourself. Another way to create productive discomfort is through accountability. Tell someone about your goals, make commitments that you can't easily back out of, or put something valuable on the line. Your reputation, your word, your money. When you have something to lose, the pressure becomes real. That pressure fuels focus. You suddenly care more, act faster, and think clearer. Most people only perform at their highest level when there's real consequence attached to inaction. You can manufacture that environment yourself by making your goals visible and binding. The relationship between discomfort and action is direct. When discomfort increases, action follows. Think about moments when you've been forced to act. Deadlines, emergencies, last-minute opportunities. You didn't overthink in those moments. You just moved. You can replicate that same urgency by creating controlled discomfort instead of waiting for crisis to push you. Deadlines, constraints, challenges, they all create artificial pressure that drives real results. Use them strategically. Discomfort also trains emotional resilience. When you expose yourself to mild stress regularly, you become less reactive when real challenges appear. You stop being shocked by difficulty. You start expecting it and adapting faster. This is what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who thrive in it. The ones who grow are the ones who've practiced discomfort enough that it no longer paralyzes them. The truth is, life will give you discomfort whether you want it or not. You can either choose it intentionally or wait until it's forced upon you. When you choose it, you stay in control. You decide the pace, the environment, and the lesson. When you avoid it, discomfort eventually finds you unprepared. That's why embracing discomfort voluntarily is a form of self-respect. It's you saying, I won't wait for life to push me. I'll push myself. Discomfort creates movement because it disrupts the illusion of safety. It reminds you that progress requires energy, and energy flows best when you're slightly uncomfortable. The moment you accept that, taking action becomes natural. You stop waiting to feel ready. You start acting because you know that readiness comes after movement, not before it. If you want to change your life, stop chasing comfort and start chasing growth. Each time you choose discomfort, making the call, facing the fear, starting before you're ready, you rewrite your limits. The discomfort fades, but the strength stays. And over time, you realize that the most powerful version of you is always waiting just outside your comfort zone. That's where the real movement begins, where the hesitation dies, and where the next level of your life starts to unfold. Number 6, use time blocks for consistency. Time is the foundation of everything you will ever create, yet most people treat it like something endless. They drift through days reacting to whatever comes their way, hoping that somehow productivity will happen by accident. But consistency is not an accident. It's a result of deliberate structure. Without structure, motivation burns out quickly. Without rhythm, even strong habits crumble. The human mind thrives when it knows when to work, when to rest, and when to focus. That's where time blocking becomes powerful. It's the practice of deciding exactly when things will happen instead of leaving them to chance. Using time blocks means dividing your day into dedicated sections of focus, each one serving a single purpose. You don't multitask, you don't negotiate, and you don't drift from one thing to another. You give that time a job, and you protect it fiercely. This approach turns ordinary effort into disciplined momentum. It removes decision fatigue, which is one of the biggest reasons people fail to take consistent action. When you wake up knowing what every block of your day is for, your mind doesn't waste energy deciding what to do next. It simply executes. The biggest mistake people make with productivity is assuming they'll find time. Time is never found. It's created through clarity and boundaries. Time blocks are those boundaries. They force you to face how you actually spend your hours. They reveal whether your priorities match your behavior. When you see your day divided into specific slots, the truth becomes clear. Either you're living with intention, or you're letting distraction decide your direction. To start using time blocks effectively, begin by identifying your essential daily actions, the tasks that move your life, work, or goals forward. These are the things that truly matter, not the small activities that make you feel busy. Once you have them listed, assign each task its own place in your day. For example, block 1 hour in the morning for deep, uninterrupted work. Block 30 minutes after lunch for communication and responses. Block another period for learning, exercise, or reflection. The key is to match your blocks to your energy levels. Don't schedule demanding mental work during your lowest energy hours. Place it when your focus is strongest, usually earlier in the day. A time block only works if it's protected. You can't treat it as a loose suggestion. When the block starts, you begin. When it ends, you stop. That's how structure builds consistency. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about showing up for the task during its designated time, every single day. The more you honor those blocks, the stronger your self-discipline becomes. You train your brain to associate each time window with a specific behavior. Over time, it becomes automatic. The same way your body gets hungry at mealtimes, your mind will learn when to focus and when to rest. There's also freedom in structure. People often resist scheduling because they think it limits spontaneity. But in reality, structure is what creates freedom. When you know everything has its time, your mind relaxes. You don't carry the constant weight of unfinished tasks because you know they already have a place. You stop multitasking because you trust the process. The time block system gives you peace by showing that every priority will be handled in its time. Time blocks also expose distractions for what they are. When you're focused within a block, interruptions become obvious. You'll start noticing how often you reach for your phone or drift into mindless scrolling. That awareness is powerful. It's not about guilt, it's about regaining control. Every time you stay committed to a block instead of giving in to distraction, you strengthen the muscle of focus, and that muscle compounds like any other. What starts as an hour of deep focus becomes 2, then 3, and eventually an entire day lived with purpose. The discipline of time blocking also trains emotional consistency. There will be days when you don't feel like working, when energy is low, or motivation is gone. The structure of time blocks carries you through those moments. You don't ask how you feel. You simply do what the schedule says. Over time, this builds mental toughness. You stop depending on emotion to act. You act because it's time. That shift in mindset is what separates professionals from amateurs, achievers from dreamers. An important part of maintaining time blocks is creating transition periods. You can't move from one intense activity to another without allowing your brain to reset. Use small buffers between blocks, 5 or 10 minutes to breathe, stretch, or refocus. This helps maintain your energy throughout the day and prevents burnout. It also reinforces mental separation between different modes of work, keeping each block clean and productive. Reflection is another powerful part of the process. At the end of the day, look back at your blocks. Did you stay consistent? Did something constantly break your focus? Did certain blocks feel too short or too long? Adjust as needed. Time blocking is a living system, not a rigid rule. The goal isn't to become perfect. It's to refine your rhythm so that you're always improving. Small adjustments lead to massive results over time. When used consistently, time blocks create a clear distinction between high-value actions and everything else. You stop reacting to the world and start leading your time. You begin to see patterns, how certain hours bring better results, how distractions cluster around certain activities, and how much time you actually waste when you don't plan ahead. This self-awareness transforms how you see your day. You no longer feel overwhelmed by the endless list of things to do. Instead, you see a structured map that guides you through each day with clarity. You can also apply time blocking to your personal life, not just work. Reserve blocks for rest, family, reading, or exercise. Without them, those parts of life often get pushed aside. Balance doesn't happen by accident. It must be scheduled intentionally. When you give your personal priorities a fixed space in your schedule, they stop feeling like afterthoughts. You begin to experience fulfillment alongside productivity. Consistency is born from repetition, and repetition is born from structure. Time blocks create that structure. They help you move through your days with purpose instead of panic. They eliminate wasted energy from decision-making and hesitation. Every time you start your day with a plan divided into clear blocks, you take control of your focus before the world tries to steal it. That sense of order spills into every area of your life. You start showing up earlier, finishing faster, and resting deeper because you know your time is being used with intention. Many people fail not because they lack ambition, but because they lack rhythm. They work in bursts, then burn out. They try to do everything at once and end up doing nothing well. Time blocking fixes that by teaching you how to work in cycles, focused, intentional effort followed by recovery. You become consistent not through willpower but through design. You stop fighting the clock and start partnering with it. Time is your most valuable currency, and how you invest it determines everything about your future. The person who controls their time controls their results, their emotions, and their growth. Time blocks are how you claim that control back. Each block becomes a promise that for this window you'll be fully present, fully engaged, and fully alive in what you're doing. There will always be distractions trying to pull you off course, but when your day is structured, it's harder to drift. You know exactly what belongs in each hour, and that awareness gives you the power to say no to what doesn't. Over time, your entire life starts to reflect that discipline. You become someone who finishes what they start, someone whose consistency builds trust with others and with yourself. In the end, time blocking isn't just about productivity, it's about respect. Respect for your goals, your energy, and your limited time on this planet. When you treat each hour as something sacred, you stop wasting it. You start living with rhythm and purpose. Each block becomes a brick in the foundation of your progress. And as those blocks stack day after day, they build a life defined not by chaos, but by consistent, unstoppable growth. Number 7. Limit options. Simplify daily choices. Complexity is the silent thief of action. Every unnecessary option, every tiny decision, every extra choice drains the mind before the day even begins. People often assume that more options equal more freedom, but it's the opposite. The more choices you face, the more energy you lose. Each decision, no matter how small, requires focus, analysis, and attention. When your day starts with too many variables, you're already tired before you even begin your real work. Simplifying daily choices is not about living a rigid life. It's about creating clarity so your energy goes toward what truly matters. Most people underestimate how much mental energy is lost through trivial decisions. What to wear, what to eat, when to start, which task to tackle first. All these tiny questions add up. They create a layer of mental clutter that keeps you in constant hesitation. You might not even realize it, but indecision is one of the greatest obstacles to action. When your mind is always busy deciding, it never settles into doing. That's why high-performing individuals and disciplined thinkers remove as many daily choices as possible. They conserve their mental power for what counts. When you reduce your options, You free your focus. The mind functions best when it operates on clear patterns. Every routine, every habit, every preset choice reduces the friction between intention and action. Think about how much smoother your mornings feel when you already know what to wear or what breakfast to eat. Those aren't meaningless details, they set the tone for the day. Simplicity creates momentum. It removes the little delays that turn into hours of lost time. One of the easiest ways to simplify is through standardization. This doesn't mean living like a machine. It means designing a personal system that reduces unnecessary decisions. Have a set morning routine that doesn't change. Keep your workspace organized so you don't waste time searching for tools. Plan your meals in advance so you don't fall into last-minute indecision. Automate bills, subscriptions, and repetitive tasks. The less you need to think about small things, the more your mind can focus on growth and creation. The goal isn't to strip life of all variety. It's to remove mental noise. Simplifying daily choices allows your brain to operate in a state of flow. You no longer waste energy shifting between unimportant decisions. You know what comes next because you've already decided. That predictability strengthens your ability to stay consistent. Each action becomes automatic, which builds momentum, and momentum creates results. When your actions require less thought, you can perform them with more intensity. Limiting options also sharpens your focus on priorities. When everything is available, nothing feels urgent. When options are reduced, clarity emerges. It's easier to identify what truly matters. The mind thrives under constraints. It becomes more creative and decisive when boundaries are clear. Too much freedom paradoxically leads to paralysis. The human brain struggles with excess. It prefers direction. You'll notice that when you simplify your decisions, confidence naturally increases because uncertainty decreases. You know what to do, when to do it, and why it matters. You can apply this principle to nearly every area of life. Start with your physical environment. The more clutter you see, the more mental weight you carry. Each unnecessary item competes for your attention. When your surroundings are clean and orderly, your thoughts follow suit. Minimalism is not about owning nothing. It's about being intentional with what you keep. Every item, every object, should serve a purpose or add value. When your space reflects simplicity, your mind learns to operate with the same discipline. The same principle applies to digital life. Every notification, every open tab, every app demands a small piece of attention. Each time you switch between tasks or check your phone, you lose focus and momentum. Create digital boundaries. Keep only the tools that truly help you achieve your goals. Turn off notifications that don't serve your purpose. Delete distractions that don't add value. Simplifying your digital environment is one of the fastest ways to regain mental clarity in a world full of noise. Simplifying choices doesn't mean you ignore creativity. It actually enhances it. When your basic routines are fixed, your creative energy is no longer wasted on logistics. You free space for imagination, deep thinking, and innovation. Great ideas rarely emerge from chaos. They arise when the mind is calm and uncluttered. That's the hidden strength of simplicity. It doesn't just improve productivity, it cultivates clarity and insight. You can also simplify your goals by focusing on fewer, more meaningful targets. Trying to chase too many objectives splits your energy and weakens your progress. Choose one or two key goals and direct your entire focus there. When you concentrate deeply on less, the quality of your work improves. Every decision, every plan, every action should align with those main goals. This keeps you from being scattered by opportunities that don't truly move you forward. Limiting your focus is not about settling for less. It's about mastering what matters. A practical way to implement this is to pre-decide your daily structure. Decide once what time you'll wake up, what time you'll start work, what time you'll exercise, and what time you'll rest. Once those blocks are set, you no longer waste energy negotiating with yourself each day. The moment you start negotiating, you open the door to inconsistency. When decisions are already made, discipline becomes automatic. It's not about forcing yourself, it's about designing an environment that makes the right action the easiest one. Clarity comes from reduction. The fewer choices you allow yourself, the sharper your focus becomes. People often think that structure limits freedom, but real freedom comes from control. When your life runs on clear systems, you gain more space for the things that bring meaning. You spend less time debating and more time doing. You no longer ask, "What should I do next?" because your day already answers that question. That certainty builds confidence, and confidence builds consistency. When you look at the most disciplined individuals, you'll notice they make fewer decisions, not more. They eat similar meals, wear similar clothes, and follow simple routines. This isn't lack of creativity, it's strategic conservation of energy. They know their real power lies in focused execution, not endless deliberation. Every unnecessary decision is a leak in mental energy. The fewer leaks you have, the stronger your focus becomes. Simplifying your life also creates emotional stability. Too many choices create anxiety because your mind constantly replays what you could have done differently. When you reduce options, you remove that internal noise. You stop second guessing. You move with certainty. Life feels lighter when you no longer carry the weight of endless decision making. The peace that comes from simplicity is not weakness, it's mastery. The act of simplifying also deepens self-awareness. You begin to notice which choices genuinely add value and which exist only out of habit. You start understanding what truly matters to you, rather than what the world tells you to care about. This clarity allows you to live intentionally. Every action, every decision aligns with your deeper purpose. Simplification, in that sense, becomes a form of self-discipline and self-respect. The power of simplicity is not in doing less. It's in doing what matters with complete presence. When you limit your options, you remove distractions that dilute your energy. You stop trying to be everywhere and start excelling where it counts. You no longer chase every opportunity because you know which ones align with your mission. That level of focus transforms effort into impact. Simplifying choices is also an act of humility. It means accepting that you can't do everything, and that's okay. It's understanding that focus is more valuable than variety. You start valuing depth over quantity, quality over speed. In a world obsessed with more, you stand out by mastering less. And paradoxically, that's how you achieve more, because your energy is no longer scattered across hundreds of meaningless pursuits. When you begin living with fewer choices, life stops feeling chaotic. Mornings become smoother, work becomes deeper, rest becomes genuine. The constant noise in your head fades because every part of your day has purpose. You stop reacting and start living deliberate. The smallest simplifications, a fixed routine, a minimal environment, a clear schedule, become powerful tools for peace and productivity. In the end, limiting options isn't about control, it's about liberation. You free yourself from the endless tug-of-war of indecision. You trade complexity for clarity, confusion for calm, chaos for focus. The more you simplify, the more energy you have for the things that actually matter. And in that simplicity, you discover the real secret to consistency. Not working harder, not doing more, but removing everything that stands between you and the action that truly moves your life forward. Number 8. Anchor actions to existing routines. Change rarely happens through giant leaps. It happens through small, consistent actions tied to what you already do every single day. The human brain resists anything unfamiliar, but it thrives on repetition. That's why one of the most powerful ways to build new habits and stay consistent is to anchor your actions to existing routines. This simple principle uses the structure that already exists in your life to create lasting change. You don't fight your brain's patterns, you use them. Every person has automatic behaviors that happen daily without much thought: waking up, brushing teeth, making coffee, checking messages, driving to work. These are not just habits, they're anchors that shape your days. By attaching new, productive behaviors to these existing routines, you bypass resistance. You don't have to find time or remember to act. The action becomes part of something that's already happening. This is how real consistency is built, not through willpower, but through design. Imagine wanting to start reading more. Instead of telling yourself to read an hour every night, anchor the habit to something that already happens. For instance, after you make your morning coffee, Read 10 pages before touching your phone. Over time, the connection becomes automatic. Coffee equals reading. The cue triggers the action without effort. That's how habits solidify through association, not struggle. The key is to find existing anchors that already hold a stable place in your day and use them as foundations for new behavior. Anchoring works because it respects how the human mind naturally functions. You can't rely on motivation every day. It fades. But you can rely on patterns. The mind prefers familiarity. It feels safe in predictability. When a new behavior is linked to a familiar one, it feels less like a threat and more like an extension of something normal. It slips into your day seamlessly. You don't have to wrestle with procrastination because the decision has already been made. The trigger pulls the habit into motion automatically. This approach also eliminates the biggest barrier to action: forgetting. Most people fail to build habits not because they lack discipline, but because they lose track of when and how to act. Anchoring removes that uncertainty. The moment the trigger event happens, it signals your next move. Over time, it becomes second nature. You no longer think about doing it, you just do it. That kind of automation is what keeps consistent people consistent. They don't rely on emotion, they rely on structure. To create an effective anchor, you need to identify stable habits that already exist in your daily life. The more consistent the base habit, the stronger the anchor. Morning routines are ideal because they happen every day without fail. You can attach new actions to things like brushing your teeth, showering, or eating breakfast. Even small rituals like turning on your computer or unlocking your phone can serve as anchors. The simpler the cue, the better it works. Once you choose your anchor, clearly define the new action that follows. Don't leave it vague. Specificity builds consistency. For example, if you want to stretch daily, decide, after I brush my teeth, I'll stretch for 5 minutes. If you want to practice gratitude, say, after I finish dinner, I'll write 3 things I'm grateful for. The moment one habit ends, it becomes the signal for the next. This chain reaction keeps you moving forward without relying on constant decision-making. It's like linking a series of steps into one continuous rhythm. Each action feeds the next, and before long, your day starts running on a smoother, more intentional pattern. The beauty of anchoring is that it adapts to any goal, physical, mental, or emotional. Want to meditate daily? Anchor it to waking up. Want to review goals? Attach it to your lunch break. Want to exercise? Tie it to finishing work. The possibilities are endless, but the principle stays the same. The cue is something you already do, and the new habit becomes the natural next step. This method turns daily life into a sequence of meaningful actions instead of scattered attempts at self-improvement. The mind loves structure, and anchors give it that structure, without rigidity. You can think of your day as a chain made up of strong links. If one link weakens, the others still hold. This stability creates momentum. When one action flows into another, you stop feeling like you're forcing discipline. It starts to feel effortless. What used to be a struggle becomes part of your identity. You no longer say, I need to remember to work out. It becomes, after work I move my body. That small shift in language reflects a deeper shift in identity, from effort to embodiment. Anchoring also protects your habits from the chaos of unpredictable days. When life gets busy or stressful, routines often fall apart because they're built in isolation. But when habits are tied to anchors that already exist, they survive disruption. Even when your schedule changes, those base habits like eating, waking, sleeping remain. Your new habits survive alongside them. This resilience is what separates temporary motivation from lasting discipline. Anchored actions don't disappear under stress. They adapt and endure. Consistency grows faster when new habits are small and clearly linked. Don't try to attach a huge goal to an anchor right away. Start tiny. 1 push-up after brushing your teeth. 1 page after breakfast. 1 mindful breath before checking emails. The brain resists drastic change, but embraces micro actions. Once the small habit sticks, you can expand it naturally. The hardest part is beginning. Anchoring makes beginning automatic. Another benefit of anchoring is that it builds momentum through positive association. When your new action consistently follows a pleasant or neutral trigger, your brain starts linking that cue with satisfaction. For example, If you listen to uplifting music every time you go for a walk, your brain starts anticipating pleasure when you hear that song. The trigger becomes a motivator instead of just a reminder. Over time, this emotional reinforcement turns habits into enjoyable rituals instead of chores. Anchoring also reduces self-sabotage. When you know exactly when and how a habit fits into your day, there's less room for negotiation. Most people fail because they leave room to talk themselves out of it. They say, "I'll do it later," and later never comes. Anchoring kills that loophole. It replaces vague intentions with exact cues. There's no debate because the rule is clear. When this happens, I do that. Discipline becomes automatic through repetition. This system works because it builds on what already exists instead of trying to create something entirely new. It's easier to modify an established path than to carve a new one from scratch. The neural pathways for your current habits are already strong. Anchoring attaches new behaviors to those same pathways, allowing the new habit to grow faster. It's efficient and sustainable. You're not battling your biology, you're cooperating with it. To maintain anchored habits long-term, keep reviewing them regularly. Observe which anchors work best and which need adjusting. Some routines may shift with time, and that's fine. The key is to stay conscious of your behavioral structure. If an anchor stops fitting naturally, replace it with another that feels stable. The goal isn't perfection, it's fluid consistency, an adaptable rhythm that keeps you progressing even when life changes pace. Anchoring also strengthens your sense of control. When you intentionally design your habits around existing routines, you stop feeling like life is happening to you. You take command of the flow of your day. Every small anchor becomes a statement of self-direction. I decide how my time is used. That mindset gradually spills into everything else you do. You start thinking in terms of systems rather than isolated actions. Systems last. Motivation fades. Eventually, your days begin to feel more predictable in the best way possible. Instead of random bursts of effort, you experience steady progress. You wake up knowing what comes next. You finish one action and smoothly move to another. The friction that once slowed you disappears, and when habits run on automatic patterns, you reclaim energy that can be used for creativity, deep work, and growth. Anchoring actions to existing routines turns your life into a series of deliberate rhythms. It transforms change from something forced into something natural. You no longer need to fight yourself to stay disciplined. Your environment does the work for you. Each habit becomes part of a living system that grows stronger with repetition. And when that system takes hold, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes who you are. In the end, real transformation doesn't come from doing everything at once. It comes from linking one intentional action to another until discipline becomes woven into your daily life. The power of anchoring lies in its simplicity. Use what's already there to build what you want next. That's how you turn ordinary moments into lasting progress. One anchor, one action, one day at a time. Number 9, make accountability brutally non-negotiable. Accountability is the invisible engine behind every person who achieves extraordinary results. Talent alone rarely carries people to success. Motivation is fleeting and unreliable. Discipline can only take you so far. What separates those who consistently take action from those who only dream is accountability that cannot be ignored. Brutal accountability forces honesty. It removes the comforting illusions we tell ourselves and replaces them with the raw truth of action versus inaction. Without it, promises become whispers, intentions fade, and effort loses direction. Many people think accountability is optional. They tell themselves they can rely on self-motivation or personal discipline. That illusion leads to inconsistency. The problem is the mind is naturally inclined to avoid discomfort. Left alone, it will choose comfort, procrastination, or distraction over the hard work required to achieve goals. Brutal accountability creates external and internal pressure that overrides those tendencies. It makes excuses irrelevant and inaction costly. Accountability works best when it's clear, measurable, and non-negotiable. Vague goals produce vague results. Saying I'll exercise more or I'll work harder is meaningless without a system that demands evidence. Accountability requires defined actions, deadlines, and standards that leave no room for interpretation. Every commitment becomes a contract with yourself or with others, and breaking it carries consequences. The sharper the structure, the stronger the drive to follow through. One of the most effective forms of accountability is to involve someone who observes your progress. This could be a mentor, a coach, a colleague, or even a friend who holds you to your word. When someone else knows your goals and expects updates, it becomes harder to rationalize failure. The moment you delay, cheat, or avoid action, there is an immediate cost: embarrassment, disappointment, or loss of credibility. That cost makes excuses ineffective. External accountability exposes the gap between what you say and what you do. Internal accountability is equally important. You must develop a system that makes you answerable to yourself with the same severity you would expect from others. Journaling your daily actions, tracking metrics, or maintaining a visible progress record creates a mirror that reflects your reality. When you see evidence of inaction staring back at you, there is no escape. Brutal internal accountability is about self-honesty. It's about refusing to lie to yourself or downplay your efforts. The stakes are personal, and the consequences are real. Your growth or stagnation depends entirely on it. To make accountability non-negotiable, create clear consequences for failing to follow through. Without consequences, accountability is meaningless. A promise with no repercussion is simply a wish. Consequences can be social, financial, or emotional. For instance, missing a workout could require a donation to a cause you dislike, or failing to meet a work goal might mean reporting to a peer publicly. The more immediate and painful the consequence, the more likely you are to act. Brutal accountability is not about cruelty. It's about creating a system where inaction is too costly to ignore. Transparency amplifies the effect of accountability. When your progress or lack of it is visible to others, your commitment strengthens. Public commitment harnesses the human instinct to maintain reputation. People naturally want to appear consistent and reliable in the eyes of others. This social leverage is one of the strongest motivators in existence. By sharing your goals and progress with others, you transform private intentions into public obligations. Consistency under accountability builds confidence. The more you act under the pressure of clear standards, the more trust you develop in your own ability to deliver. You begin to see that excuses are meaningless, and your word becomes sacred. That trust compounds over time. Every day you honor your commitments under accountability reinforces the belief that you can rely on yourself. You are no longer at the mercy of fleeting motivation or emotion. Accountability also prevents creeping complacency. Without it, it's easy to rationalize small failures. I'll do better tomorrow, or I'll start next week. Those small concessions accumulate until momentum is lost entirely. Brutal accountability eliminates wiggle room. You no longer negotiate with yourself. There is no tomorrow that excuses inaction. Each action must be completed as promised. The discipline becomes automatic because the cost of failure is too high to ignore. Building accountability systems requires careful planning. Start by clearly defining the behaviors you want to enforce. Break them into measurable actions. Assign deadlines and decide how and to whom you will report. Determine the consequences for failing to meet those commitments. Then implement a tracking system that makes your progress, or lack thereof, undeniable. The clarity of this system ensures that nothing is left to chance. It forces you to face reality head-on. The intensity of accountability must match the difficulty of the goal. Small tasks require less rigorous monitoring, but high-stakes objectives demand maximum enforcement. For example, if your goal is to complete a professional certification, partial effort is unacceptable. The accountability system must leave no room for compromise. Every milestone must be visible, measurable, and non-negotiable. Anything less is an invitation for procrastination. Another aspect of accountability is the timing of evaluation. Daily or immediate accountability is far more effective than vague, distant check-ins. Waiting a week or a month to evaluate progress allows excuses and rationalizations to creep in. Immediate accountability creates urgency and focus. When you know that your actions will be scrutinized soon, you act decisively. The pressure compels movement before procrastination can take hold. Accountability also strengthens resilience. Every time you follow through under pressure, you train your mind to withstand discomfort. You learn to act despite fear, fatigue, or doubt. That resilience becomes a muscle that grows with every completed commit. You begin to welcome challenges because you know that accountability ensures progress, even when motivation is absent. It is important to pair accountability with clarity. If your actions or goals are vague, even brutal accountability will falter. You must know exactly what counts as success and what counts as failure. Every expectation should be measurable and observable. Ambiguity creates loopholes, and loopholes weaken discipline. Accountability only works when it's clear, precise, and inescapable. Over time, living under non-negotiable accountability transforms your identity. You become someone who delivers. People start trusting you, but more importantly, you start trusting yourself. Your word becomes your currency. You no longer debate whether you can achieve a goal. You simply execute. That identity shift is far more powerful than temporary bursts of motivation. It rewires your brain to prioritize action over hesitation. Brutal accountability also protects against self-deception. The mind is adept at rationalizing failure and rewriting reality. Without an external or internal mirror, you can easily convince yourself that inaction is acceptable. Accountability exposes the truth. It removes rationalizations and forces you to confront your performance directly. That honesty is uncomfortable, but it's the soil in which growth flourishes. Finally, accountability is not a one-time solution. It must be embedded into your daily life to create lasting impact. Each day presents new opportunities and temptations to stray. By enforcing strict accountability continuously, you train yourself to act consistently regardless of circumstances. Discipline becomes a byproduct of your environment and systems, not a fragile product of fleeting willpower. To live a life of consistent action, accountability must become absolute. It must be structured, measurable, immediate, and unforgiving. Every commitment must carry weight. Every failure must carry consequence. Excuses are irrelevant. Under these conditions, hesitation cannot survive. Momentum becomes inevitable. Progress becomes tangible. And over time, the person you are evolves into someone who does not wait for motivation, does not compromise, and does not break promises to themselves or to others. Accountability, when taken to this extreme, is transformative. It builds trust, focus, resilience, and consistency. It turns intention into reality. It ensures that every action has meaning and every day contributes to growth. When accountability is brutally non-negotiable and action is no longer an option, action becomes a default, results become unavoidable. This is the path to mastery, discipline, and unstoppable progress. Number 10. Reward discipline, not fleeting motivation. Discipline is the engine that carries progress forward, while motivation is nothing more than a fleeting spark. Motivation is exciting, but it is unreliable. It comes and goes with moods, energy levels, and circumstances. You might feel inspired one morning and completely drained the next. Relying on that inconsistent surge is like trying to build a house on shifting sand. Discipline, however, is structural. It's the deliberate choice to act regardless of how you feel. Learning to reward discipline instead of chasing temporary motivation changes the way you approach everything in life. Most people mistake motivation for action. They wait for inspiration to strike before starting a task, believing that feeling ready is the key to progress. That approach is a trap. Motivation is reactive. It responds to circumstances rather than creating them. It cannot be scheduled or summoned on demand. Discipline is proactive. It doesn't wait for the perfect conditions or a burst of emotion. It executes the task because it has committed to doing so. That difference is subtle but critical. Rewarding discipline trains your mind to value consistency over feelings. The first step in rewarding discipline is to recognize it when it happens. Every time you take action because it needs to be done, not because you feel like it, you are exercising discipline. Completing a workout, writing a report, sending a difficult message, or sticking to a learning plan are all acts of discipline. Acknowledge those moments intentionally. Celebrate them quietly or track them visibly. By marking your disciplined choices, You reinforce the behavior in your brain. Recognition acts as a reward, strengthening the likelihood that you will repeat the behavior in the future. Rewarding discipline also involves creating systems that honor consistent action. Small, tangible reinforcements are powerful. For example, after completing a set number of discipline actions, allow yourself a meaningful break, a small treat, or some other personal acknowledgement. These rewards are not bribes. They are confirmations that effort, not fleeting emotion, carries progress. Your brain learns to associate consistent action with positive feedback, which strengthens resilience against procrastination and inaction. It is important to distinguish between the thrill of motivation and the satisfaction of discipline. Motivation often feels exciting and immediate. It can make you rush into action, but its effect is short-lived. Discipline is quieter but more potent. Its impact compounds over time. Each act of discipline builds momentum. Unlike motivation, which fades with emotion, discipline grows stronger as it is practiced. Rewarding discipline reinforces this long-term perspective, teaching your mind that sustained effort produces far greater results than a burst of enthusiasm ever could. Discipline also requires structure. Without clear goals, defined actions, and measurable outcomes, it becomes difficult to practice effectively. Motivation can sometimes fill that gap temporarily, but it cannot replace clarity. Rewarding discipline requires creating an environment where disciplined actions are visible and trackable. For instance, checklists, habit trackers, and daily logs act as mirrors that reflect consistent effort. These tools allow you to see the cumulative effect of your discipline rather than focusing on the inconsistent sparks of motivation that come and go. Another key aspect is timing. Immediate rewards can be powerful for building new habits, but the ultimate goal is to internalize discipline itself. At first, you might allow yourself small reinforcements, 5 minutes of leisure, a favorite snack, or a short break after completing a task. Over time, the reward becomes the feeling of having followed through, the intrinsic satisfaction of honoring your word to yourself. The focus shifts from external stimuli to internal validation. Discipline becomes its own reward, which is the hallmark of mastery. Discipline is also about controlling impulse. Every day, countless distractions compete for attention. Motivation might tempt you into action when it appears, but when it disappears, distraction takes over. Discipline acts like a compass that maintains direction despite fluctuating emotions. Rewarding yourself for following that compass reinforces self-control. The brain learns to value the steady path of effort over the unpredictable peaks of enthusiasm. This mindset gradually makes consistent action a habit rather than a conscious struggle. It is critical to recognize that discipline is cumulative. Small, disciplined acts, repeated consistently, produce results far beyond what any short burst of motivation could achieve. Writing 5 pages every day, exercising consistently, or saving money regularly are all examples where discipline outweighs sporadic inspiration. By rewarding discipline, you create a positive feedback loop. The mind associates consistent effort with growth and satisfaction, reinforcing the behavior and creating momentum that carries into all areas of life. Rewarding discipline also strengthens your identity. When you consistently act regardless of feelings, you start seeing yourself as someone capable, reliable, and committed. Your self-image shifts from a person who sometimes does to a person who always follows through. This shift is transformative because identity drives action. Once discipline becomes part of who you are, motivation becomes a bonus rather than a requirement. The reward of discipline is the reinforcement of a stronger, more capable self. It is also essential to avoid confusing indulgence with reward. The reward must align with the effort and support your overall growth. If discipline leads to action that contributes to your goals, the reward should reinforce, not undermine that progress. For example, allowing a small break or acknowledgement is effective. Excessive indulgence, like procrastinating or giving in to comfort, defeats the purpose. Discipline is strengthened when the reward celebrates effort rather than offering an escape. Consistency in rewarding discipline helps train your brain to expect recognition for effort rather than emotion. The mind learns that actions have value independently of how you feel in the moment. Motivation might still excite you occasionally, but its role becomes supplementary. Discipline becomes the reliable driver of results. Every act of following through, no matter how mundane or difficult, becomes a marker of growth, which builds confidence and reinforces the habit of action. To integrate this effectively, design a system where your daily efforts are acknowledged. Keep a visible log of completed tasks, milestones reached, or personal commitments honored. Even a simple tally or checklist reinforces the principle. Over time, this system teaches your brain that steady effort produces tangible outcomes, while waiting for motivation produces inconsistency and stagnation. Rewarding discipline turns effort into a measurable and appreciated asset in your life. Discipline also protects against the volatility of life circumstances. Motivation is often influenced by external conditions, mood, environment, or social factors. Discipline, however, acts independently of these variables. By rewarding consistent effort, you train your mind to prioritize action over condition. Your ability to perform becomes less contingent on fluctuating inspiration and more a function of your commitment to a process. Rewarding discipline strengthens resilience. Every time you act despite low energy, doubt, or distraction, you reinforce your capacity to push through obstacles. Each rewarded action becomes a marker of progress and a testament to your ability to sustain effort under challenging conditions. Motivation may falter, but the satisfaction of following through compounds, making you increasingly capable of handling difficulty without hesitation. Eventually, rewarding discipline reshapes the way you approach challenges. You no longer wait for the perfect feeling or ideal circumstances to begin. Action becomes the default. The mind prioritizes effort over hesitation, and momentum builds naturally. You start to see results that motivation alone could never deliver, and the habit of disciplined action transforms both daily routines and long-term aspirations. Discipline becomes its own ecosystem of growth. Each act, no matter how small, contributes to a larger structure. By consciously rewarding these acts, you reinforce the stability and reliability of that system. Motivation may come and go like waves, but discipline creates a steady current that carries you toward your goals. Rewarding discipline ensures that the current never stops, that progress is inevitable, and that personal growth becomes a predictable, consistent outcome. Ultimately, life rewards those who act consistently, not those who feel temporarily inspired. Motivation might provide the spark, but discipline lights the fire and keeps it burning. By rewarding consistent effort rather than fleeting feelings, you teach yourself to rely on structure, commitment, and perseverance. The more you honor discipline, the less you depend on the unreliable whims of motivation. Over time, this principle becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Action breeds progress, progress breeds confidence, and confidence reinforces the power of disciplined, consistent action. Rewarding discipline over motivation changes the trajectory of your life. It transforms how you measure success, how you perceive effort, and how you respond to challenges. Discipline becomes the engine of growth, and every action taken out of commitment, not emotion, becomes a step toward mastery. This is how lasting results are built, and this is how extraordinary lives are forged, not through inspiration, but through the relentless, consistent application of deliberate effort.